Hello everyone, this is Amirali Solution Architect from Fuzzy Labs. Fuzzy Labs is a data-driven OT cybersecurity startup from India. So we are starting a series of lectures on OT cybersecurity, and this is our first session, and we'll be restricting ourselves only to the definitions of OT and IT. So IT basically is information technology. So in order to understand the entire definition of information technology, first let's just understand what information is. So information is a data which has value and meaning. So useful data, meaningful data is called as information. So now what is data? Data is something which is just a raw information, raw data. For example, deposit amount rupees 5,000 is a data. Date, today's date, for example, 1st July 2026 is again a value, a data. But when we organize this data and to give a meaning. For example, Ram has deposited rupees 5,000 on 1st July 2026. It gives a complete information, even though it is data, but it's well organized. So the organized or processed data is called as information, whereas raw data or raw pieces of data is just a data, which has some value but doesn't give a complete information, complete meaning. So hope it makes sense. Now, hereafter, whenever I use the term data, you can assume it as an information. So information is nothing but useful and meaningful data. So to understand information technology, uh, so I will be using a typical example of banking system. Before computers, pre-computer era, how the banking used to operate. So if customer wants to create an account, the customer has to physically walk into the bank, uh, has to request for an account creation, then the bank employee pull out the register, capture all the details, personal details of the customer, and generates a account number. Over a period of time, it wants to customer wants to deposit money into the account. Again, he has to physically walk in, give her hard cash to the employee, banker employee, and bankers used to manually check all these notes and deposit and just again update the record. So for every action, for every operation, there is a physical human intervention is required. Either it's a creation of account, deposit of money, withdrawals, loan processing. So all has to be done manually. It used to be recorded into the large physical paper registers or ledgers. Even the interest calculation, uh, the balance after withdrawal, all used to be processed manually by hand, calculated manually by hand. So this is often easy when the number of customers are limited. If customer database grows, so searching an account uh, becomes slow. Processing uh, the loan will become obviously slow, and calculations will also become a tedious job, and it's always prone to human errors. But what happens? Uh, Imagine when there is a system which is completely operated uh, using a new banking system. Okay, so how it is done? So before diving into that, so let us understand what banking agenda is. Bank's agenda is just to uh, create and customer data, create and customer account, for example, and do operations on that account like adding enough money, removal of withdrawal of money, then processing the loan. So all these are the operations which are done on that information, on that bank data. So basically what I want to say here is, so the operations which are performed on the information is like creating an account, is like creating an information. So you're doing certain operations on the bank data, bank customer data. Like create, store, you process that data, you transmit and you protect that data. So banking in general sense does all this. So with modern banking system, so what is happening? We use technology to do these operations. I said the operations like creating an account, uh, loan dispersal, uh, withdrawal, deposits. Okay. Um, so all these processes, all these operations are done through some technologies, some softwares. And to store the information of the customer, even it is done through the technologies like storage technologies. So in general, to be very general, so what information technology uses is it uses the technology to process or to manage the data, or to process or to manage the information. In case of banks, it is used to manage the customer data or customer information. So what we use technology to store the information. We have storage technologies. We have uh, technology to encrypt the data. We have technologies to back up the customer data, customer records, customer transaction history. So we use database technologies for that. So we use computers to run software applications like customers applications will be running there. We have servers to support millions or hundreds of transactions which are happening per day basis. So what we are doing is we are using technology to process the information or to manage the information. That's what information technology is. Making sense? So uh, this information technology is basically a combination of hardware systems, softwares, and storage devices, databases, and communication technologies. For what? These technologies are used for what? Used to manage the information. Managing in the sense creating the information, storing the information, processing that information, transmitting that information from one bank to other bank, or bank to customer, or customer to customer, and also to protect that digital information. So to give a one-liner definition for information technology is a collection of technologies used to manage the information. So I repeat, technology used to manage information is called as information technology. Now, we understood information technology very much. Mm, to a certain extent, we know that information technology is a set of technologies or a collection of technologies used to manage the information. Now, what is operation technology? So, operation technology is very different from the information technology, but still we are using technologies here. What are those technologies? What operation means here? In order to understand that, so let us understand uh, the milk processing plant. Okay, and to understand the milk processing plant, we need to understand the operations involved there. When I say operations, it's our physical operations. For example, uh, the manual way of processing a milk is, first, the worker has to collect the milk from the farmers. After collection of the milk, uh, the worker has to uh, verify the quality of the milk. They need to separate the milk based on the quality. They are supposed to fill the tankers based on the fat content, or some logic were used to detect the quality of the milk. They are supposed to quantify the milk. They are supposed to measure the quantity of the milk, and after that, the workers has to manually heat the milk, boil the milk to a certain temperature. Should not exceed some threshold. They should also make sure after heating, the milk has to be cooled at certain temperature. So all these operations are naturally manual, and often inconsistent, and with come with errors. So all these operations, you understand, the operations is like collection of milk, separating the milk based on the quality, measuring the measuring the quality of the milk, heating the milk, monitoring the milk temperature, cooling the milk, and maintaining the milk at that particular temperature. These are all manual, but with these are all manual operations. Okay, hope you understand operations. These operations are called as physical operations. Whenever I say operations, always a physical operation. A physical operation like packing the milk, cooling the milk, heating the milk is one operation. Filtering the milk is another operation. Measuring the quantity of the milk is the other operation. Receiving the milk, filling the cans or containers is other operations. So it's all operations. Now come to a modern automated packaging factory, or a automated milk processing factory. What happens there is all these operations, physical operations like receiving the milk, monitoring the milk temperature, heating it, filtering it, removing all the dust particles or hairs, removing basically the impurities from the milk is one operations. All these operations, if it is done through computer, it is done through the computer. And when I say done to the computer, there could be a machine which is doing that. There could be a uh, machine to filter all the impurities. There could be a sensor to sense the temperature, and uh, and there could be a logic or a control system to control or maintain the temperature at that particular level. So all these technologies are used to maintain or manage the physical operations in the plant. Is basically what operation technology is. I repeat, the technology or the computer system used to manage the physical operations of the plant or the industry is called as operation technology. So operation technology is a combination of, again, hardware and software. There could be a lot of robotic system or machinery which is nothing but hardware. In order to control that hardware, obviously we need some softwares. So so in order to communicate between the two machines, we obviously need some communication technologies. So it's a combination of a hardware and software stack to control or to manage the operations. So managing operations here like is monitoring the physical processes, controlling that process, automate that physical process. Okay. So to generalize, IT is always managing digital information, whereas OT is like managing or controlling the physical operations. Physical operations like opening the wall, steam wall, closing the steam wall. Right? This is an operation. So finally, we wind up with the difference between OT and IT. Technologies used to manage the information or the data is called as IT, whereas the technology used to manage the physical operations of the plant, like managing the temperature sensor, controlling the temperature sensor, and opening of a wall, steam wall, to increase the temperature of the tank, closing the steam wall. These are all physical operations. These operations are not manually controlled, but controlled using a computer system or a software running on the computer system, or a software running on a particular machinery. Okay, so whenever I say IT always it's always with the workstations like servers, databases, networks. Whenever I say OT, it's all you assume as a plant. Plant has a lot of sensors, actuators. It has a programmable logic devices which is used to control the sensors and actuators devices. And the SCADA system is a big system which is used to monitor and see the visualize what's happening in the plant. OT is always about information. Obviously, the output of the system is uh, the information itself. Whereas OT is all about the operations. The output is always a physical action, like closing the wall, opening a wall, starting a motor, stopping a motor. All these are physical actions, and these actions are controlled using computer system. That's all OT means. Thank you.